Good.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar with Devon. Just to give everyone a little bit of a heads up on who Devon is. Devon is the owner of the Grow Green Distribution and Nature's Relief. Many may recognize him from when he was playing rugby nationally and internationally. And during this time, during his rugby time, he completed his BCOM in marketing and his honors in business management. So Devon's product reach has been to 4 countries, busy expanding through Green Grow and opening 2 retail dispensaries in Umhlanga, KZN, and Olivedale in Johannesburg, South Africa. They employ qualified doctors. So this is a real deal. Nature's Relief. Sounds very cool. Yeah, so we're very excited to have you on the show, Devon. And for those who don't know you so well, can you please tell us, who is Devon?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for the intro and welcome to everyone. It's exciting to have the opportunity to just talk openly about all this stuff and to be on your podcast. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Just a bit of a background for me. I'm a rugby player at heart, but with a keen interest in the body and health and wellness, in trying to optimize performance and recovery. My background, I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, but I moved out of home to pursue rugby when I was 18 and ended up living in about 2 different provinces in South Africa. And then I moved overseas and played a season in France. So during that time, I ended up meeting a lot of different people and experiencing quite a lot of different methods, I guess, of training, of nutrition, of health and wellness. I've had about 9 surgeries along the way, so I've had my fair share of doctors and physios. But with such an interest in it, it was always actually very lucky to speak to the guys and understand, the different methods that they use. And through that journey, I ended up coming back to South Africa to pursue rugby here. And that's actually where in 2017, I tore my ACL and then started sort of looking at opportunities outside of rugby. Rugby doesn't last forever. And then I started a company called Grow Green Distribution. That was mainly because of a keen interest in health and wellness. Actually, from my knee, I started looking at different nutritional plans, different ways to reduce inflammation. And then I came across something called Moringa. That was really the starting point. And then into CBD and into cannabis. And actually back when I was playing Varsity Cup at NMMU, I started looking at the cannabis industry because, you started seeing things online and for something that's so taboo, and for me has always been like a negative thing or something that you should really avoid as an athlete. It wasn't really adding up, seeing what everybody's responses were in different countries. So for me, it was interesting. I thought that there was definitely grounds for more research and for it to come about. And in 2017, when they opened up some of the legislation and applications for cultivation, I decided that that's really the time. And it actually has worked out really well because it's an interest in nature, it's an interest in the body, it's an interest in sports and performance and recovery. So holistically, it was just something that I was keen to get into. And yeah, that's brought me to where we are today. We opened our first dispensary in 2018, just due to the need for a safe place for people to come and engage about these different taboo medicines, and then also just to assist them in making the right decisions and getting to a point where they can have a good experience and that it adds value to their life. I'm still trying to play rugby. I'm trying to go back next year. So that part hasn't died. But yeah, it's been a journey, and I hope that gives you a little bit of context as to sort of where I've come from.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as a South African, we all love rugby. We're just born with it, the love for the sport.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so,
definitely.
So Devon, when we spoke, you said you've played the leadership roles in quite most of your situations along the way, even captaining a few teams you played in. How would you say did you acquire the skill?
I think it probably comes like from the childhood times, my parents always encouraged us as when we were growing up to lead by example, and try and do what we think that other people need to do, or if we want to show something, we've got to be the first one to do it. So from an early stage, it was really about putting your hand up and having a go. And then I started noticing that, when someone does that, then others, tend to follow. And then it became quite a thing of, okay, cool, there's a bit of responsibility here, but we can really guide people to achieve like a common goal. So plus also I just love people, and I want to see the best out of them. So it was really, I think just naturally, I just wanted the best for everyone. So in the sports teams, really, I wanted to drive higher standards on an ongoing basis, and just keep a good vibe, keep, everything good and positive. And I think through the way that got me selected into some leadership roles. So basically I think from childhood, and then I've just learned, once you take that position and you learn it, and you sort of takes the pressure off, it's become a little bit easier and easier to lead as we go. So it is still daunting though.
So it's like they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
It's quite scary.
So on that as well, when you told us a little bit about yourself, you mentioned having multiple surgeries that took you out of rugby and trying to get back into it. I can just imagine transitioning out of a professional sport into the working world, a different environment completely. What advice would you give to others out there that are walking the same path that you are, or that you have walked?
Look, that's a good question. And in fact, when I was studying my honors at NMMU, my partner Jared Bass and I, we did our thesis on the attitudes and perceptions of professional rugby players moving into retirement and their retirement planning. And within that, there was a section that was really on athletic transition out of sport. And it's a global challenge, to be honest, and I've experienced it firsthand, in the last few years. And the thing is, when you're pursuing sport, you've got this dream and this goal of getting to the top one day. Everybody, as a rugby player, if you're aspiring to it, you're picturing yourself in that Springbok jersey and getting there, and you're constantly working towards it and sacrificing a lot along the way. So, but sport is a limited time frame. The body can't take hits forever. So, in that, the challenge was pursuing something full on and trying to refine your skills and your time and sacrificing along this line. And then all of a sudden, you got to start looking elsewhere. And then when you go into a career, you may start at the bottom of the pile. Now you don't know anything about sales, or, you haven't really pursued a career in a company. And that you go from hero to zero pretty quickly. For me, I didn't play Super Rugby or the Springbok level, so it's a lesser case for me. But for some guys, they really develop that identity, because you have to. When people ask you, "Who are you? What do you do?" You say, "I'm a rugby player. I play here. I do this." Now that whole narrative changes, and then how does it change? And where do you go next? And there's couple different directions you can go, but if you haven't pursued any studies along the way, or if you haven't pursued anything outside of rugby, then I think guys find themselves in some difficult situations. However, I do think for athletes nowadays, if I had to give them some advice, it would be to open your eyes and start learning a couple of ways, that some of the fundamentals of business, because business applies to everything. It's not just you got to start your own company, or you got to do this. It's just a mechanism to make ends meet and to make money. And there's a lot of ways that athletes can actually do that now, especially with the fact that we've got social media and we've got a lot more coverage, people looking at their phones. So guys have the opportunities to potentially build brands. It's a very big interest of mine. I'm keen to explore, targeting some of the professional athletes coming out of sport, because for me, the transition has been kind of similar, where you're still sticking into where you've got some speciality or some knowledge, which is health and wellness and nutrition and some of the medical side, maybe if you've had some injuries, and there it can you can maybe have some transferable skills. But if I was them, I'd say, look at what your skills are, look at what your strengths are, and try and see how you can apply that in the business world somewhere, and add value to people's lives, because essentially that's what people pay for.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No, great answer, Devon. Now I want to ask you a little bit more about your companies, your businesses. How did Nature's Relief come to life? Like, how did you start it, and where did the idea come from?
Look, it started in 2012. To be honest, when I was playing rugby, I did something that I don't know, most rugby players maybe don't do, but we ended up, instead of going out drinking the one night, we ended up smoking cannabis, and we ended up relaxing and whatnot, and eating, just to be open and honest. And we weren't at a time when we were getting tested and stuff like that. It was out of season. But it was really, it was interesting, because this thing for me, it was like a recreational act. But then, we ate well, we slept well, and then the next day I trained very well. So, it was like a little bit confusing. This thing that can be a negative was just kind of a positive. So at that stage, I needed to understand what was going on in my body, and if there is a risk of testing, or how does this work. And then once I started looking into it, the doors opened and they haven't really closed. There's just so many, once you learn about the endocannabinoid system, which we'll touch on just now, and what's happening overseas, you see that they are leagues ahead of where we are. And there's actually a potential for this space. So if we fast forward to 2017, when I came back from playing overseas, they started opening up some legislation and applications for farming and cultivation, which for me just said, okay, cool, it's coming. And it wasn't a case of if, it was more a case of when for me. So when that started happening, then I really decided, we need to get involved at some level. And I spoke to my dad, and my dad initially looked at me like I was crazy. But now it's been an interesting journey, because he's now my business partner. And, it's been interesting, because the difference in generations when it comes to cannabis have vastly different opinions, Yeah. So we found ourselves in a situation where, I wanted to get involved. I met two of the most interesting guys that I've met. And I think that it's just sort of happened organically. Like I met our main moringa supplier. His name was Graham. Is Graham. Was a fascinating guy, and just such a passion for how the plant works. I started using moringa. It started adding a lot of value in terms of my training, in terms of my wellness. I don't think I've seen a doctor in 5 years for any sort of like bacterial or any like immune issues besides the surgeries. And then on the cannabis side as well, I met some incredible guys with a lot of knowledge. One guy's Calvin, and then but along the way just engaged with a lot of people that understand the plant very well, the cultivation, how it works. How do we keep things safe? So as I was learning about all of these things and understanding the production process and where these things come from and how it works, on the other end, there was a lot of people very keen to take cannabis oils or take, natural medicines, and looking at these things. And I started getting asked a lot of questions. And then, I found good source and supply. And in fact, my mom at the time, she was looking for something for sleep. And I really, with my own mom, I wanted to make sure that I knew where the stuff comes from. And that's where it started. And then I started to provide some of these extracts to some different people just from referrals. They just wanted to get access to it, and they needed someone to try and guide them. But at the same time, I'm a rugby player. I know the body, I know how it's worked for me, and I've tried and tested and researched as much as I can. But there's a lot of ethics involved with medicine and those types of things. So I didn't really feel comfortable. And then we opened up Nature's Relief, and then we employed a qualified homeopath. But when I say homeopath, there's often a lot of, questions, because you do get like different types of homeopaths, some that lean more towards like your more eccentric energy healing, more holistic, that sort of space. whereas the guy that we employed is a clinical homeopath, and he has extensive knowledge in pharmacology and understanding actual pharmaceutical medications. So at that point, we really just wanted to create a safe space for people to come and bring their health issues and their questions to somebody who's qualified to answer them, and also has the understanding of ethics and stuff to handle the situation responsibly. And that was in 2018. So we opened our first store then, and since then we've opened another one in Johannesburg. We've brought a great doctor on there as well, and yeah,
rocking.
Yeah, another thing, sorry, is like, you know, my keen interest is understanding how these things work across different people, because we do have an endocannabinoid system, and there is always a variance. People have different diets, different lifestyles, different backgrounds, and cannabis isn't one thing that works for everyone, and it's just one thing, you smoke it and you're cool, you know, like there's a variety of different strains and extracts that are available on the market that serve different purposes, but there's also a variance in the response that we get from the same thing due to people having an endocannabinoid system. And so we put a measurement in the store where we follow up. We do mandatory follow-ups after 2 weeks with each client, and that's really just been to get out in the front and understand what's working best against our specific products, because you can see online, yes, CBD this, yes, this and that, but where does the extract come from? What carrier oil has it been used? What sort of ratio of the oil is in there? How has it been dosed? So we needed more specific stuff, and that's really why we created Nature's Relief in the way we did.
Wow, no, that's a great backstory. Thank you, Devon. We've got a question here from Stephanie. She asked, did you use the CBD medically while you were overseas before 2017?
No, I actually didn't. I used it like, I actually used THC, you know, like more in a recreational sense that had a weird like side medical benefit, because it also was like great for sleep and stuff, but we couldn't use it a lot at all because we got tested in the rugby space. And then CBD, I didn't try. It was too early, I think. Yeah, in 2017, I don't even remember seeing much CBD on the market or being really aware of it. It was only once I got back to South Africa.
It really came in. Okay. And then I've got another question from Val. She asked, can you tell us a bit more about moringa powder and how to incorporate it into your daily diet?
Yeah, moringa is an interesting one. There's so many things contained in it that it's something that it's hard to say it just does one thing, because it does a multitude of things, but it's got 92 nutrients in it. It's a leaf powder, and it comes from the moringa tree, which they call the miracle tree, because it grows in very hot, harsh conditions, uses very little water, and it produces a lot of phytochemicals that you find in the leaves. So it's what we mainly use is the leaf powder, which is ground up shade dried leaves, and then we've got the seed powder as well. And the leaves contain 92 nutrients, 46 antioxidants. It's a complete protein. It's got all the amino acids in, essentially. Then it's also got omegas in it. It's got anti-inflammatory compounds. So it's something that you just use like a tiny amount every day. If you do use quite a lot, it acts as a natural laxative. So for people that need that, it works. But the way that I use it, I just use like a quarter of a teaspoon in a smoothie or in a drink every day. Yeah, so it's a little thing that has helped a lot.
So sounding from the properties of the moringa, is it best to use it in the morning?
Yeah, I'd say. Definitely greens in the morning, and you can also use it at night, though. It's not something that'll keep you awake.
Okay, awesome. I've got another question here from Jessica. Now that your range has expanded so much, which are your go-to daily supplements? Did this routine of yours influence your new different ranges?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I've always struggled a little bit with ADD. I get distracted quite a lot. And then also just from an energy point of view, I just want to get if anyone who knows me, I want to get the most out of every day, and like I don't really stop. So for energy and focus, I've used a lot of the mushroom extracts, so things like lion's mane, cordyceps, and then some different blends with that. I have played around with some microdosing, which has been very interesting because I used to use Ritalin and Concerta, and now I've managed to get off of that space completely. And then moringa. Beyond that, sometimes I'll use scaletium. Scaletium is an interesting plant that's a natural like mood enhancer. We'll also, and then I'll mainly use the full spectrum extracts at night when it's time to wind down and switch off and get some rest. So I'll generally use the more nutritional, energy focus related ones during the day, and then in the evenings I'll use the full spectrum extracts from cannabis.
Oh, wow. That sounds very interesting and very diverse, the product range that you have.
Yeah, and we've also, it's been interesting because now, we started going into a couple different blends, like one product for concussion, actually. I've had about 6 concussions, but just in general, the movie Concussion came out with that documentary. You see CTE, you see like concussion. I know in the rugby industry, most folks take a knock and they just go back on the field. So that space, we really wanted to combine things. So I put lion's mane in a combination with CBD. Lion's mane is a mushroom that helps the body produce more nerve growth factor. So it's neuroprotective. It helps with the brain function. It helps with focus, but also with the benefits of it being neuroprotective. And then CBD is a natural anti-inflammatory. So putting those two together was pretty key for me. And then we added cacao in it. And the result has been that is quite a nootropic product. It's called the Nootropic Mind. But it helps with focus and concentration. We have a lot of people that have used it as an alternative to Ritalin and Concerta as well. And it takes effect quickly. You just put a few drops in your coffee in the morning and you're awake and alert for a good 4 to 6 hours. So that was an interesting development. And then also going into like the more recreational space, we've actually played around with an interesting concept, which I don't want to talk too much about, but next year we'll be getting out a little bit more with it. But it's an alcohol alternative. So we've created a mood enhancing beverage. Using natural extracts that also have side benefits as opposed to side effects. It's really trying to achieve, I guess, the similar effects to what we see people want on the market. You can see there's a lot more energy drinks out there. There's a lot more, medications used for specific purposes, and alcohol is used as a medication for a lot of people, I guess. But some of those have got detrimental side effects, whereas if we can achieve the same effect with some side benefits, that for me is option A. So that's the direction it's sort of going.
Awesome. And then another question here from Jessica, getting peppered with all the questions. She asks, do you put much energy into sourcing the raw materials? Any traceability?
Yeah, it's a important thing, really for me, it's been quite a challenge. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the industry. There's a lot of people saying a lot more than they're actually doing. So what's been key is to work with the right people that share the same morals and values and that integrity to do the right thing when nobody's looking. So we've aligned ourselves with several manufacturers and several suppliers that we've been working with for about 3 years, 4 years, and we've got a good track record. But from a traceability point of view, don't want to go into it, but there's some interesting things we've explored in like blockchain stuff, because at the end of the day, consumers, it's hard to know what is in each product, especially with the lack of regulation in South Africa. You see CBD oils that will still make you high. And now people are getting a little bit nervous about CBD, for example, even though it's THC that makes you high. So I think that traceability is a growing space, people just wanting to be aware of what they're putting into their body. So essentially with our current product range, we've got batch numbers on the majority of our products. In some cases, it's slightly more difficult. when you're growing the business with smaller runs and stuff like that. But I know exactly, the supply chains and stuff like that, and we're happy with the quality. So that's the key thing.
Yeah, no, I would believe that's quite a key operation in the business. I think on a lot of people's mind right now is the word that you mentioned, endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
What is that?
Have you ever heard of it before this call?
I've read about it before, but
okay.
Not 100% sure, what is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of doctors as well. I mean, like so we basically got a system in our body that that operates on both our nervous and our peripheral nervous systems, but it's a network of receptors located around our body on our different cells. We've got two different types of receptors. We've got CB1 and CB2 receptors. And this system is basically designed as it's a neuromodulator. So it's something that is trying to bring the body back to its natural state, or trying to regulate and calibrate as we go. So the system was, I think, defined in the 90s, but it was discovered before that, and our body produces endocannabinoids, or endogenous cannabinoids, that go and attach to these receptors and operate whether you're using cannabis or not. So our endocannabinoids are things like anandamide, and there's one called 2-AG, I think it is, if my memory serves me correctly. But these receptors also the phytocannabinoids that you find in cannabis also attach to these receptors. So basically, the situation we find ourselves in, and where this cannabis industry is coming from, is that we've got this infrastructure in our body that is it's a healing system, it's a regulating system, and then we've got these cannabis plants that contain a whole bunch of phytocannabinoids, of which over 100 to 150 have been discovered and identified. And now it's about connecting the dots between, which cannabinoids are most effective for what. So, for example, CBD, that's been now researched and proven in many cases for inflammation. And that's where the whole CBD sort of space coming from, more from inflammation and from anti-anxiety properties and stuff like that. But then you get THC, which more attaches to your receptors on your central nervous system. That's the one responsible for getting you high. But that high is more of like a sedative kind of effect, or like a analgesic effect. So like it's good for pain, it's good for sleep. And then you get things like CBG, CBN, CBC, and the list goes on. Even before you do the extraction in the plant, most of the cannabinoids are found in their acid form. So you get like CBDA, which is cannabidiolic acid, and THCA. So they're slightly different before you've what they call decarboxylated it. So before you've heated it or changed some of the structure. So some of the effects can be slightly different in its raw form compared to when it's heated or burnt or extracted. And in extraction, there is a heating component in it. So yeah, there's a lot of playing around to do with these cannabinoids and putting together endocannabinoid or cannabinoid solutions, I guess. And I think the bad stigmas around it sort of come because the majority of strains, so in the cannabis strains, you get cannabinoids and you get terpenes, and not all of them, like you get different cannabinoid profiles. So just because of the demand for THC, it's like smoking a painkiller or smoking like a sleeping medication essentially, but that's the high that people get. But because that was the demand, to get high, that's the majority of the strains that were grown. So now you see with more of the demand shifting to things like anti-inflammatory benefits, like anti-anxiety, or dealing with the mental space, maybe some gut-related issues, immune problems. Now, there's grounds for more of these other strains to be grown and for us to start to create some different ones. So we're really at the beginning of this industry, but it's all based around us having this endocannabinoid system in our body.
Sure, very interesting, and a lot of insight from your industry and what can happen and what's going to happen. So very, very cool. You've spoken about mushrooms, lion's bane, No, there are a lot of mushroom strains that I've read about, and what other type of mushrooms have good health benefits?
I think it's first key to differentiate between the ones that have got psilocybin in and ones that don't. So psilocybin is the compound in magic mushrooms that has a psychedelic effect, and you get a number of different strains of mushrooms that contain that. But there's something like 3 million species of mushrooms that have been discovered, but it all sort of comes down to like the top 20, or top 5 actually in the functional space. And so if we take the psilocybin ones aside, the 5 top ones that have been hailed and called as functional mushrooms are lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, and chaga. Those are the main ones that have shown medicinal properties and adaptogenic properties. And the interesting thing with them is that all of those contain something called beta-glucans. So beta-glucans are something that can help, I think they're complex polysaccharides, but essentially what they do in the body is they just stimulate the immune system and just sort of wake it up. It doesn't boost it or reduce it, it just sort of wakes it up, so that that's what they call an immune modulator. So it will help the body to respond appropriately, or the immune system to respond appropriately. So instead of either boosting or suppressing it, it will just do what it needs to. And then so they've all got beta glucans, and then the individual ones have got different alkaloids that are beneficial for different things. So lion's mane, like I mentioned earlier, that's got something called hericenones in it that helps the body produce more nerve growth factor. So that's more for like focus, concentration, the brain. Cordyceps, that's got cordycepin in, so that helps the body produce more ATP. So that's your primary source of energy. So more for your like body energy, your athletes, also good for oxygen utilization. You've got chaga, which has also got its alkaloids in it. That is the actual chaga, the king mushroom, because it's got a lot of antioxidant properties as well. And then turkey tail has become very popular at the moment because of its benefits in terms of cancer research and to be used alongside other cancer treatments. And I don't want to, cancer is something you've got to just tread lightly with. I don't want to just claim that it's for everything, but it's also something that's got very good immunomodulating properties and complex polysaccharides that help the body. There's some schools of thought that they say that it helps the body recognize the cancer cells, but it has a positive effect in cancer treatments. That's what we've seen. And then reishi has been used for centuries. It's got a lot of antioxidants, good for blood flow, and also has a calming anti-anxiety kind of effect. So those are the 5 functional ones that are no psilocybin, no magic mushrooms, no psychedelic experience, but that you can use on a daily basis.
Okay, cool. I've got a message here from Val. She says, thanks, Devon. CBD and lion's mane works very well for my menopause symptoms. Just an FYI. I think there's a whole market out there to make aware of those 2 items alone for menopause sufferers.
It's amazing. Thank you very much, Val. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. This is what happens. We set out and we say, CBD, brain, focus, whatever, or like lion's mane, but, we see like a variation in benefits coming back. And that's why we're here, to try and connect all these dots.
Exactly, yeah. So moving back to athletes, with all the supplementation and medicine that's out there, what natural medicines will be beneficial for athletes, for performance, or even recovery?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of key components that all athletes share. We all want to perform at our best and better than our best, and we want to recover so that the next day we can also perform to our best. So it's this constant balance between performance and recovery. And I think that from the natural medicine side, even before that, a lot of athletes are using different anti-inflammatories, different painkillers to manage themselves, because they generally are pushing the limits and going beyond. So in order to help with that, the one downside to medications essentially is it's got a bit of a negative impact on the gut, and the gut they're talking a lot about is our second brain, something that helps produce our serotonin, or the majority of our serotonin, and some other neurotransmitters that are very important. So where the natural medicine side comes in, and things like CBD and lion's mane, is to help with that performance and recovery without the negative side effects, number one. But the ones that we can help with is to help athletes with sleep. You got like a double benefit when it comes to the CBD. You can use it for sleep, but you can also it's also a natural anti-inflammatory. So while you're getting the rest, it's also helping you recover. And then from the focus and concentration side, and also the psychology in sport, there's always pressure. You got to perform to your best, and everything happens today. From that side, we've seen like some of the functional mushrooms doing a very good job, like lion's mane, also cordyceps from an energy production point of view and oxygen utilization. That's really good. And then the moringa, that has made a big difference for me personally, just because your immune system you want to keep strong throughout. If you get sick, there's more pressure on all your organs when you're training and stuff. So maintaining that strength and immune strength, and focus and concentration during the day, and then being able to switch off and relax at night, is where our products have been really good. And then also from a topical perspective, if there's places that people have had joint pain or injuries and stuff like that, the cannabinoids and the natural medicines also absorb very well. Even like your essential oils and stuff do very well topically in localized areas.
Wow.
So I hope that answers the question. There's many ways we can do it.
Yeah. Okay, great. We've got a comment here from Val. It says, just want to say thank you and to confirm I've done a lot of research into much of what you have shared, and yes, it's all true. Well, that's great.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Val. I appreciate that.
So on that, Devon, I can say with confidence, you've come out of a different field and you've went into the working world and made quite a success. And I think you've built quite a great brand, and I think it's going to be very successful. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. I hope so. It's a whole nother ball game starting the business. I won't lie. Like, just it's like starting another human that just takes a lot of time and energy. But I'm super passionate about people, and I think that the most exciting thing for me is that there is hope and faith in this body and brain that we've got. I think sometimes that it's underplayed, and maybe people think that it's not possible for this and that. Frustrating sometimes hearing when doctors say, there's nothing we can do, there's this and that, and just take that hope away. But I think the biggest passion for me is that we've got the most incredible body and brain, and if we can learn how to tap into it and give it a chance, and give it the right sort of raw materials, the sky is the limit. And I think it's just trying to make it more accessible to people, the information and the quality products and the right things for them to use. But it's exciting. I think we're in a good time, even though there's a lot of challenges and problems, it's part of life. I think this is what shifts us into the right direction.
Yeah. Devon, I've got one more question here from Ross. Ross says, when I was on Ritalin at 10 years old, would have loved to have explored some other options for ADD and ADHD. Ritalin was not a great option. So from what what would you recommend would be best for ADD?
Look, there's two ways to look at that. I think with a lot of kids using Ritalin and Concerta and stuff like that, we do have a couple that have been using the lion's mane and CBD blend. That's the nootropics, because it also has cacao, which contains theobromine in. So it's quite a stimulating product, but it helps with focus and concentration. So I would look at the nootropic mind as one option. And then there is a lot of research going into the microdosing actually psilocybin mushrooms, and that I've personally tried, and that sort of made a big difference for me, and which was interesting. There is a lot of research that needs to go into it though, because using it daily, it's still quite new, but I would look at either the microdose or the lion's mane if you can get or at Nature's we got the nootropics, the nootropic mind. And then also, going forward, I think that the psilocybin is going to be quite an interesting space to look at from an ADD perspective. There's also some people that struggle, with being a little bit chaotic and need to just calm down and just slow down to actually speed up. And in that case, some people use CBD for the ADD just to help take the edge off and to focus. So it's kind of dependent, but the closest that I found to like a Ritalin or Concerta that's quite a stimulating effect is the nootropic mind. And then actually our neuro range of capsules, those have been very good.
Okay, great. I just shared your website, Nature's Relief, for those who would like to have a look at it. And then I've also got another message here from Jessica. How have you balanced being a business owner and starting a business when it's still so taboo? I mean, being an industry leader is daunting.
Yeah, no, it's been difficult, I must say. Coming from rugby, going from rugby to cannabis and mushrooms is like, you can quickly become a black sheep, or not a black sheep. People just, that all they know about cannabis and mushrooms is they probably think that I'm sitting there smoking joints all day and eating magic mushrooms, and you know what I mean? Like you just don't know what history has come from it. So look, it's just taken being bold and confident and understanding that what I'm doing is like looking into the why and the purpose of what we're doing, and seeing that if there is safety and there is things that can contribute to everybody, and that I've ticked the boxes, I'm happy. So for me, I think it's just about time management, which I really struggle with. That has been, starting a business, you jump at a lot of different opportunities, and I'm very ambitious, so I've maybe jumped at quite a lot of things and then try to build in the background. But it's going all right. I think on a constant basis, I think that's also where like the natural medicines have helped. If I look in the last 5 years of running the business, during the time I've had about 6 surgeries. And so in the middle of it, been down for 3 weeks on crutches, can't walk, can't do this, can't do that. And all the way, I must be honest, I've maintained a very steady mindset and quite like a bit of content, which has been a struggle in the past. And my anxiety has been really good. So, not really there, which is good. But it goes in waves, and it's just taking every day and trying to make the most of it and having a go. But a big helping hand has also been my partner, who's my dad, and he helps settle my mind quite a lot and just helps me focus on what's important, just for today. Sometimes you can see the whole world, but it can't be done today, So,
yeah. Oh, no, that's awesome. It's great to have a grounding partner like that. And being a father, of course. As Devon, I've got a question here from Stephanie. Your product is used for healing. Is it not addictive at all? And what happens when one stops using it? Sounds like you will be using it daily for life. Quite an interesting question.
That's a very good question, because I think that the answer to that is quite subjective. I think that, like anything, I would relate it in a way similarly to coffee. So, coffee, it's something that's not necessarily addictive, but it's something that you can become a little bit dependent on. And I think that the main difference between, if we look at like addictive profiles and stuff, like firstly, the products that we're talking about don't have addictive properties in the sense where if you stop taking it, your body shuts down. That's on the pharmaceutical side, you're using things like a bit of like an outsource, something that goes in and forces a change or makes a change in the body. And it's very effective, and it's important that we have that there. For like short-term measures, we need something to come in and do the job for us. But if we're doing the job, if something else is doing the job for the body, then the body is not doing its own, it slows down its own mechanisms to do that. When you stop it, there's a big dip, and the body's got to relearn almost the processes to match that. Whereas using these, like the functional mushrooms and moringa and some CBD and those types of things, it's more giving the body some raw materials to use on its own, to tap into like the body's natural systems. So we find that, when people stop and start them, there's less of a variance, so it's something, look, personally, I don't want to depend on anything. I don't think that that's the way. I think that if people are depending on things, they've got to look at things like, what are you doing for exercise? What's your nutrition like? What's your sleep like? What are you doing outside of just what you're consuming from a medication and a nutritional point of view? And you got to be looking at some of those things, because at the end of the day, we can manage ourselves just with good nutrition, with breath work, with water, with sleep, with exercise. That's how the body's designed. It's just that in today's world, we don't pay attention to some of those key fundamentals, So I would always recommend looking at that for some of the answers. But I do also find one of the side benefits is almost to the natural medicines is that they almost create a bit of more self-awareness and what's going on in the body, and it becomes a little bit easier to listen to your body and understand what's making you feel this way, or where's this coming from, and then looking to address it like that. So it's quite a long-winded answer, but just to get a little bit more specific, from that addiction side in natures, we haven't seen people necessarily addicted, but there is cases where people, I think it will definitely have become addicted to THC and cannabis. So it's something that does need to be respected, and I think the best way to do that is just to be checking into yourself and seeing, am I pursuing what I'm pursuing? Am I moving forward, progressing in the different facets of life?
Cool.
Does that
that's
answer?
Great answer, very informative. And Stephanie replies to say, thank you, great answer. I'm a nurse and like to prevent chronic medication if at all possible. So,
yeah. We're on the same path.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of people at Natures, to be honest, that sometimes we do the follow-up and they say, no, it's cool, I'm sorted, and it's great. That's why we're here. I believe that we don't need to keep people on these things forever. That's not the purpose. The purpose is for them to start understanding their body and their mind a bit better, and some of the supplements allow them to do that. And then, if they want to continue taking them, then we can move them from a healthcare state to maybe a wellness state to maybe a more performance state. And once they've got to that stable level, then maybe they want to have a go and, see what they can do beyond that. That's more how I'd see it than trying to just keep people in a healthcare state and just managing their symptoms.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No,
sorry, there's something smashing inside. Yeah.
We can't hear it.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Thank you to all the attendees, and thank you, Devon, for being a guest on the webinar. I think it was very informative, very insightful, and I think we all learned something here today.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Chris. And if there's any further questions or if people want to get involved or get in touch with us, I'd highly recommend dropping us a message either on one of our social platforms, Nature's Relief SA, or you can get through to us at one of our shop phones or on the website. I'm sure, Chris, would you be able to send that out, or otherwise just give us a follow.
Great stuff. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day or evening wherever you are.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.